Hello everyone, this is Judge Frank Caprio. Yo, listen here. First things first, happy holidays everybody. Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy whatever you're celebrating this time of year. Look, I know the world's a little crazy right now, so take a minute, breathe, grab some coffee, some eggnog, whatever you need. You're back here with me, and you already know the rules. This is the Justice in View, and we don't sugarcoat things here. We talk straight, we talk real, and most importantly, we talk to you like you're the only person who matters in this room, because to me, my friend, you are. Before we get into the heavy stuff today, do me a favor, and I'm only asking this of you, not the thousands of other people watching. Hit that subscribe button for the Justice in View channel. I know, everybody asks for it, but between you and me, that subscription means something. It's like saying, hey Judge, I trust what you're saying here, and I want to hear more. It's personal. It means everything to me when one of you hits that button. So please, do it for me right now. Just one click. Go ahead. I'll wait. All right. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about something that's been making my head spin all week. You see this thing with Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, this kill everybody story that just broke? The moment that changed my career happened on a Tuesday morning in January when Secret Service agents swept into my courtroom like it was a military operation. Metal detectors, security screens, bomb-sniffing dogs. And then, walking through the door with the confidence of someone who believed himself untouchable, came Barron Trump, youngest son of former President Donald Trump, 19 years old, 6'9", towering over everyone in the room. He'd just started college at NYU, living the life of a wealthy teenager with unlimited resources and his father's political legacy following him everywhere. Surrounded by what looked like a small army, 4 Secret Service agents, 3 attorneys, including a former Solicitor General, and 2 assistants carrying briefcases that probably cost more than most people's cars. He wore a designer suit that screamed wealth and power. His watch was a Rolex worth at least $75,000, and his expression, a mixture of teenage arrogance and learned entitlement, told me he'd already decided how this would end, with me backing down because of who his father was. But sitting in the front row of the gallery, looking small and terrified, was someone who had no power, no protection, no expensive attorneys, someone who was about to test whether the American judicial system could stand up to presidential influence. David Martinez, 52 years old, high school teacher at Classical High School, father of 2 college students. His face showed healing bruises where Barron had shoved him 2 weeks ago at a Providence nightclub. His glasses were held together with tape, broken when Barron knocked them off his face, and his eyes held the kind of fear that comes from being hurt by someone powerful and then threatened by people who told him that pursuing charges against a former president's son would create problems he couldn't imagine. The charges were assault and battery, underage drinking, use of a fake ID, and witness intimidation. According to the police report and security footage, Barron had used a fake ID to enter Club Karma, a 21-plus nightclub in downtown Providence. David Martinez had been there celebrating a colleague's retirement. When David accidentally bumped into Barron near the bar, the club was crowded. Barron had grabbed him by the collar, shoved him into a wall, and started screaming at him. When David tried to apologize and walk away, Barron had followed him, knocked his glasses off, and shoved him to the ground. Then Barron had said the words that made this case national news. Do you know who I am? I'm Barron Trump. My father was the president. He still runs this country. One phone call and you're done. You lose your teaching job. You'll never work again. Nobody messes with a Trump. Security footage captured everything. Police arrested Barron, and now he stood in my courtroom, a 19-year-old who'd spent his teenage years in the White House, clearly believing that invoking his father's presidential power would protect him from consequences. What I did in the next 24 minutes didn't just shock the courtroom, it sparked a national debate about privilege, accountability, and whether the children of presidents should receive special treatment. And proved that in America, when the system works correctly, no amount of political power places anyone above the law. If you believe that presidential families shouldn't receive special treatment, that threatening witnesses with political retaliation is an attack on democracy itself, that judges must defend the law, even when facing the most powerful families in America, hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to do will restore your faith that justice can still defeat power. Mr. Trump, I began, and I could feel the tension in the room. Everyone knew what was at stake. You're charged with assault and battery against David Martinez, underage drinking, possession of a fraudulent ID, and witness intimidation. Before we proceed with your plea, I need to address the extraordinary security presence in my courtroom. Counselor, explain why your client has Secret Service protection. His lead attorney, Theodore Lawson, former Solicitor General who'd argued dozens of cases before the Supreme Court, stood slowly. Your Honor, my client is entitled to Secret Service protection as the minor child of a former president under Title 18, United States Code, Section 3056. The presence of these agents is legally mandated and non-negotiable. Mr. Lawson, your client is 19 years old. He's not a minor. Explain to me why Secret Service protection extends to an adult college student facing criminal charges. Your Honor, protection for children of former presidents extends until age 16 or until they decline it, whichever comes later. My client has not declined protection. Furthermore, there have been credible threats against my client related to this case. I looked at the agents positioned throughout my courtroom. Threats from whom? Mr. Martinez, a high school teacher who was assaulted by your client at a nightclub? Your Honor, we're not at liberty to discuss specific threat assessments. Of course not. I turned to Barron Trump. Mr. Trump, you have your own voice. How do you plead? Barron stood, and despite being 19, the arrogance was already fully formed. His voice was deep, carrying the confidence of someone who'd never really faced consequences. Not guilty, Your Honor. This is completely unfair. I'm being targeted because of who my father is. That teacher started it. He bumped into me on purpose, probably recognized me and wanted to provoke an incident. When I told him to back off, he got aggressive. I defended myself. That's not assault. That's self-defense. Mr. Trump, you're 19 years old. You were in a 21-plus nightclub using a fake ID. You assaulted a 52-year-old teacher. Those are facts. How do you explain being in that club? Your Honor, everyone uses fake IDs in college. It's not a big deal. And that club lets people in all the time. They barely check IDs. They probably knew who I was and let me in because of my name. I set down my pen carefully. Mr. Trump, you just admitted to using a fake ID and suggested the club gave you special treatment because of your father's name. Do you understand that doesn't help your case? His attorney was whispering frantically, but Barron waved him off. Your Honor, I'm just being honest. Look, this whole thing is blown out of proportion. I'm a teenager. I went out with friends. Some guy bumped into me and got in my face. I reacted. It happens every weekend at every club in America. I'm only here because my last name is Trump. Miss Chen, please present the evidence. Jennifer Chen approached with a tablet. Your Honor, we have security footage from Club Karma showing the entire incident from multiple angles. May I play it? I nodded. The lights dimmed. The first camera angle showed the entrance. Barron approached with 3 friends, all around his age. The bouncer checked IDs. You could see Barron hand over an ID card. The bouncer looked at it, then looked at Barron, clearly recognizing him, and waved him through without the thorough check he'd given others in line. Barron's friends followed. The second camera showed the interior. The club was crowded. Barron and his friends pushed their way to the bar, ordering drinks. Barron was loud, gesturing broadly, clearly already intoxicated or acting like it. The third camera showed the incident. David Martinez was walking from the bar back to his table, carrying 2 drinks. The crowd shifted. David's elbow accidentally touched Barron's shoulder, barely any contact. Barron spun around immediately, his face twisted with anger. He grabbed David by the collar with both hands. David's mouth moved, clearly apologizing, trying to defuse the situation. Barron shoved him backward into the wall, hard. David's drinks went flying, soaking other patrons. Barron got in David's face, clearly yelling. David tried to walk away. Barron followed him, grabbed him again, and knocked his glasses off his face. Then Barron shoved David to the ground. Security moved in. Barron was still yelling, his finger pointed at David. The audio picked up Barron's voice clearly. Do you know who I am? I'm Barron Trump. My father was the president. He still runs this country. 1 phone call and you're done. You'll lose your teaching job. You'll never work again. Nobody messes with a Trump. The fourth camera showed police arriving. Barron initially refused to cooperate, arguing with officers. When they asked for ID, he showed them something and said, "Call the Secret Service. I'm Barron Trump. You can't arrest me." When the lights came back on, the courtroom was silent. I looked at Barron, whose jaw was set in defiance. Mr. Trump, you just watched yourself use a fake ID to enter a 21-plus establishment, assault Mr. Martinez without provocation, and threaten him using your father's presidential power. Do you still maintain you acted in self-defense? Theodore Lawson stood quickly. Your Honor, my client is a 19-year-old college student who made mistakes that millions of college students make every year. The fake ID charge is a minor infraction that's typically handled with a fine. The altercation was mutual combat between two adults in a crowded bar, and my client's statements were made under stress and don't constitute legally actionable threats. Furthermore, as the son of a former president, Mr. Trump has legitimate security concerns that could justify his heightened reaction to physical contact from strangers. Counselor, your client grabbed a man by the collar, shoved him into a wall, knocked his glasses off, threw him to the ground, and threatened to use presidential power to destroy his career. Security concerns don't justify assault and witness intimidation. Your Honor, I'm prepared to file a motion to dismiss based on selective prosecution. My client is being charged as an adult for offenses that are typically handled as juvenile matters or administrative violations, specifically because of his father's political prominence. I felt my blood pressure rising. Your client is 19 years old. He is legally an adult. Adult crimes receive adult consequences. Mr. Martinez, please approach. David Martinez stood slowly and walked to the front. Up close, I could see he was still shaken, the way teachers get when they realize the world is more dangerous than they thought. Mr. Martinez, tell me what happened that night. His voice was quiet, carrying the measured tone of someone who spends his days speaking to teenagers. Your Honor, I'm a history teacher at Classical High School. I've taught for 26 years. That night, I was at Club Karma for a colleague's retirement party. I don't go out often. I have 2 kids in college, so money is tight. But this was special. He paused. I was walking back from the bar with drinks. The club was packed. I accidentally bumped into someone. Mr. Trump. I immediately said, I'm so sorry, excuse me. I tried to move past him. That's when he grabbed my shirt and slammed me into the wall. David's voice trembled slightly. Your Honor, I'm 52 years old. I'm not a fighter. I'm a teacher. I tried to apologize again. I tried to walk away. He followed me. He knocked my glasses off. I need them to see. I'm very nearsighted. Then he pushed me down. I fell hard. I hit my head on the floor. But what scared me most was what he said. He said his father still runs this country, that he could make one phone call and I'd lose my job, that I'd never work again, that nobody messes with a Trump. Tears filled his eyes. Your Honor, I teach American history. I teach my students about checks and balances, about how no one is above the law in our democracy, about how our Constitution protects us from tyranny. And here's the son of a former president telling me his father still runs the country and can destroy my career with one phone call. After that night, I received phone calls, unknown numbers, people telling me to drop the charges, that pursuing a case against a Trump would be career suicide for a public school teacher, that school boards get pressure from politicians, that parents would complain about me. One caller specifically said, teachers are replaceable. The Trump name isn't. He looked at Barron directly. I'm teaching my students that America is a nation of laws, not men, that we're all equal under the law. If I drop these charges because I'm scared of political retaliation, how can I ever teach those principles again? How can I tell my students that justice matters if I won't stand up for it myself? The courtroom was absolutely silent. I looked at Barron Trump, who was staring at his phone, scrolling through something, barely paying attention to David's testimony. Mr. Trump, put the phone away and pay attention to the man you assaulted. Barron looked up, irritated at being told what to do. He pocketed his phone slowly, deliberately taking his time. Mr. Trump, you heard Mr. Martinez's testimony. He's a teacher trying to educate the next generation about democracy and the rule of law. You assaulted him and threatened him with political retaliation. What do you have to say? Theodore Lawson stood. Your Honor, my client declines to make a statement at this time. Of course he does. I looked at Jennifer Chen. Miss Chen, you mentioned Mr. Martinez received threatening phone calls. Do you have evidence? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Martinez recorded 2 of them. She played the audio. First call. Mr. Martinez, you should think carefully about continuing with these charges. The Trump family has a long memory. School boards are political. Superintendents listen to powerful people. It would be unfortunate if your contract wasn't renewed next year because you made the wrong decision here. Second call, this is your last warning. 19 years old with his whole life ahead of him. You're a middle-aged teacher. Who do you think matters more? Drop the charges or face the consequences. The courtroom erupted in gasps and angry whispers. If you believe that threatening a teacher's career using presidential power is unforgivable, share this video right now, because what I'm about to do will defend our democracy from those who think political power places them above the law. Mr. Lawson, I said, my voice cold, did anyone associated with your client or the Trump family make those phone calls? Your Honor, we have no knowledge of those calls. They could be from overzealous supporters. They proved nothing about my client. They proved that someone threatened Mr. Martinez's career to pressure him to drop charges against your client. I turned to Barron Trump. Mr. Trump, stand up. He stood slowly, towering at 6'9", looking down at me with barely concealed contempt. Mr. Trump, you're 19 years old. You're legally an adult. You used a fake ID to enter a 21-plus establishment. You consumed alcohol illegally. You assaulted a 52-year-old teacher who accidentally bumped into you. And you threatened him by invoking your father's presidential power. Here is my finding. You are guilty of assault and battery. The video evidence is irrefutable. You are guilty of possession and use of a fraudulent ID. You are guilty of underage consumption of alcohol. And you are guilty of witness intimidation. You explicitly threatened Mr. Martinez using your father's political influence. Barron's face flushed red. Your Honor, you're targeting me because you hate my father. This is political persecution. Mr. Trump, watch your language in my courtroom. I'm holding you accountable because you broke multiple laws and threatened a teacher. Your father's politics are irrelevant. Here is your sentence. For assault and battery, 6 months in the Rhode Island Adult Correctional Institutions. For witness intimidation using threats of political retaliation, 1 year to be served consecutively. For possession of fraudulent ID and underage drinking, an additional 6 months. 2 years in state prison. The courtroom exploded. Secret Service agents moved forward instinctively. Theodore Lawson was shouting, Your Honor, 2 years for a 19-year-old college student for a bar fight. This is outrageous. This is clearly motivated by political bias. We will appeal immediately to federal court. Counselor, your client assaulted a teacher, threatened to use presidential power to destroy his career, and showed zero remorse. 2 years is appropriate for someone who believes political power places him above the law, especially someone who's 19 and needs to learn these lessons before he's 25, and still believing his name makes him untouchable. Barron was shaking with rage. You can't send me to prison. I'm in college. I have my whole life ahead of me. Your father is a private citizen, Mr. Trump. He holds no office. He has no power in this courtroom. You broke multiple laws. You're facing consequences. Additionally, I'm ordering you to pay full restitution to Mr. Martinez. Medical expenses, new glasses, pain and suffering. Total $25,000. And I'm issuing a protective order prohibiting you, anyone in your family, or anyone associated with you from contacting Mr. Martinez. I looked directly at Barron. Mr. Trump, you spent your teenage years in the White House. That's extraordinary. But it doesn't make you special. It makes you lucky. Your father achieved something remarkable by becoming president. But that's his accomplishment, not yours. You were born into it. What you did with that privilege was disgraceful. You used a fake ID because you thought your name would protect you. You assaulted a teacher because you believed your father's power made you untouchable. You threatened a man's career because you've learned that the Trump name can be used as a weapon. In America, we don't have royalty. We don't have a class of people who are above the law because of their family name. Your father's presidency doesn't exempt you from consequences. And in this courtroom, you're just a 19-year-old who assaulted someone and has to face justice. The gavel fell. Secret Service agents were speaking urgently into radios. Theodore Lawson was already on his phone, and Barron Trump stood there, face red with teenage rage and disbelief. This isn't over. My dad will fix this. You're going to regret this. Mr. Trump threatened me one more time and I'll add contempt of court to your sentence. Bailiff, take him into custody. Officers approached. Barron was handcuffed, the tallest defendant I'd ever sent to prison, and led away, still shouting about his father, about appeals, about how this was all unfair. Within hours, it was national news. Donald Trump tweeted, "Disgraceful what they're doing to Barron. 19 years old, and they're sending him to prison for a bar fight." But 8 weeks later, the Rhode Island Supreme Court upheld my sentence unanimously. Their opinion stated, being the child of a former president does not exempt anyone from criminal accountability. Judge Caprio's sentence was appropriate given the defendant's use of presidential power to threaten a victim and his complete lack of remorse. Barron Trump served 18 months before being released on parole for good behavior. David Martinez received his restitution and continued teaching, telling his students about the day he stood up to power and won. If this story moved you, subscribe. Share it with anyone who needs to understand that presidential children don't deserve special treatment, that democracy dies when political families become untouchable. Barron Trump used his father's presidential power in my courtroom. I gave him 2 years in prison and proved that in America, no one, not even a former president's 19-year-old son, is above the law.